Well, we've had breaking news on the coronavirus outbreak from Italy in the last couple of hours because the government is taking yet more drastic action. The entire country has now been placed under lockdown. Now, we already knew that 15 provinces, primarily in the north, would be under quarantine from Monday morning in order to try and contain the spread of this virus. But by Monday evening, that had been extended to the entire country. Bear in mind, Italy is the worst hit nation outside of China in the world. It has 463 deaths and close to 8,000 infections. Across the next half an hour, we'll bring you up to date from Italy, as well as from the US, Ireland, Israel, Iran, China, the UK and elsewhere. The state of the crisis more broadly, well, these red graphics here mark where the biggest outbreaks are. There are now over 110,000 cases in more than 110 countries and territories. The death toll is close to 4,000 and more than 60,000 people have recovered. But we're going to begin in Italy in this extended quarantine that's been announced in the last couple of hours. Here's the Prime Minister.
Non ci sarà più una zona rossa.
There won't be a Zone 1 or a Zone 2. There will only be one Italy with a protected zone. We would then need to avoid movements across the whole territory, unless they are essential and motivated by three specific circumstances: work reasons, necessary reasons, or also health reasons. And we add to this decision a prohibition on public gatherings.
So to put this in context, these measures are the most restrictive in Italy since the Second World War. All schools and universities across the country, not just in the north, are going to be shut. Sporting events will be cancelled. Only urgent work or movement because of family reasons will be allowed. And that original isolation area just in the north has now been expanded. But of course, it contains Italy's financial hub, Milan. Here's one journalist's account of being there.
I think people are starting to wake up really to what is happening, not only because of the measures that have been taken, but also of the way they were communicated. I think the government is trying to make sure that people shouldn't panic with this, but at the same time, it's really important to be responsible in this moment. And hopefully now people are going to start becoming more responsible and just stay home as much as they can.
Now, not everything is ground to a halt. Some flights are still operating, trains are still running. And to be clear, access to this initially quarantined area in the north did not appear to be particularly strictly monitored. It seems as though tourists have been staying away despite the variations in restrictions. We know that tourism is worth in the region of, well, 60 million tourists come in, so many hundreds of millions of euros. So the economic fallout will be considerable. And we know the government's planning to pump billions into the Italian economy in order to deliver a massive shock therapy, to use their phrase. We can't really know if that's going to work for months, though. And as you'd imagine, right now, business owners are concerned.
My mother has a small business 20 minutes away from Milan with one employee and two trainees, and she felt that she would have to close her business for a month, and she was worried about her employees. But actually, our local authorities made it pretty clear that business can keep running, but the owner of the business has to guarantee a social distance of 1 meter among clients and visitors.
Well, Italy is a particular concern because of its large elderly population. It has the highest proportion of over 65s in the EU. By that measure, globally, you can see here, Japan has the most elderly population, Italy second, Germany third. And we know older people are by far the most at risk from this coronavirus. They also, of course, have the greatest need for healthcare all round. So we have a double concern: older people being exposed to the virus and the virus impacting on health service resources more broadly. Here's one Italian virologist.
This is actually the biggest concern that we have at the moment, because intensive care wards are being filled with patients, mainly with elderly people that have a severe respiratory form or a mild respiratory form, and they go to the hospital. And so the semi-intensive and the intensive care units are, they're just full. And what is happening is that they are reprioritizing the activities of the hospital of the hospitals involved, and this means that patients that had to have other types of surgery or other types of treatment don't have access to that treatment. So it's a very, very difficult situation.
This story is morphing into so many different types of crises. There have now been riots in 27 Italian prisons. The trouble began in the northern city of Modena, where inmates here had been told that personal visits were being suspended because of the virus. Trouble began. 6 people have now died there. We know there was a fire in one cell block. Others died from methadone overdoses after breaking in to the infirmary. If we go a lot further south to Foggia, well, over 50 prisoners escaped to prison there, although 32 have been recaptured. And next, got to look at the situation in San Vittore prison in Milan. Here you can see some inmates right up on the roof. Their banners have been calling for pardons for their crimes and better medical support to protect them from the virus. So 2 quite separate demands there. Outside the prison, their relatives have been joining the protests. So here's one prisoner's wife.
We see that our relatives have nothing. They have no masks, they have no treatment, they have nothing.
And about the situation in these prisons, here's Sofia Bettiza from BBC World Service.
Some riots are still ongoing in the south of Italy, but mostly things have now been contained. We've heard that about 6 people have died as a consequence, and those people that you mentioned, those inmates in the south of Italy, in Foggia, 20 of them are still missing, so they managed to escape.
And is the primary concern of prisoners that they can't be kept safe while this virus is spreading?
It's twofold. That's the main concern, but some of the protests broke out as a consequence of these new measures that you mentioned that have been introduced by the government.